Alright, so here's the tea, and you didn't hear it from me, but Gypsy-Rose is out here dropping bombshells again. In her new memoir, My Time to Stand, she's included a heartfelt and honestly kinda jaw-dropping letter she wrote to her mother. And let me tell you, the details are wild. But before we dive into the letter, let's get some context, because this isn't the first time she shared it. Gypsy already spilled the tea on this letter in her earlier book, Conversations on the Edge of Freedom. So if you missed it back then, don't worry. I've got the scoop right here. Gypsy gives us the backstory behind this letter, and it starts in 2019, when she took this mandatory class called Impact of Crime on Victims, or IBC. The whole point of the class was to make offenders realize how their actions affect not just their victims, but also everyone else caught in the fallout. For Gypsy, this was a big deal. It wasn't just about facing her crime, but also about unpacking her past, owning up to what she did, and realizing her mom wasn't the only victim. And get this, her very first assignment in the class? Write a letter to the person you wronged. Talk about emotional homework. Gypsy said it made her reflect on everyone in her life. Her mom, her siblings, neighbors, even Nick, the guy who actually carried out the murder. At first, she didn't see Nick as a victim, but after taking the class, she realized that while he made his own choices, her actions were the catalyst that ultimately led to his life being destroyed too. When she finally wrote the letter to her mom, Gypsy said it gave her a kind of peace she'd never felt before, like no amount of holy water could ever deliver. She poured her heart and soul into it, hoping her mom would somehow get the message and forgive her. And babe, this letter, it's equal parts gut-wrenching and eye-opening. Here's the moment we've all been waiting for, the letter itself. Gypsy opens it by addressing her mom as if she were standing right in front of her. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. She admits she can't justify her crime or undo what happened, but she spent years reflecting on her choices and the circumstances her mom created that led to that horrific night. Gypsy talks about growing up in complete isolation, with her mom being her only connection to the world. She reveals how her mom forced unnecessary surgeries and medications on her for illnesses she never even had. The scars from those procedures weren't just physical, they left deep emotional wounds too. And let's not forget how her mom refused to let her get a proper education. Gypsy says that robbed her of the confidence and skills she needed to thrive as an adult. But here is the part that really hits home. Gypsy mourns all the normal life experiences her mom stole from her. No first day of school, no hanging out with friends at the mall, no prom, no heart-to-heart moments after her first heartbreak. All those little milestones that make life sweet? Gone. It's like her entire childhood was ripped away and she's only now realizing how much she missed out on. By the end of the letter, Gypsy's message is clear. She's no longer the broken, desperate girl her mom controlled for 23 years. She's grown, she's reflecting, and she's ready to move forward. But this letter is her way of closing a chapter that was filled with pain and manipulation. Gypsy lays it all out. Fear, manipulation, and isolation weren't just themes in her life, they were her entire existence. And she's still grappling with this haunting question, why couldn't she just have free will? Like, is that too much to ask for? Apparently, in her world, it was. But here's where things take a turn. Gypsy says she's been searching for answers and trying to make sense of all the chaos. And girl, the tea she spills. She believes her mom's actions were the result of a mental disorder, Munchausen by proxy. Now, that's a heavy claim. She's basically saying her mom was mentally and emotionally unstable, which, okay, might explain some of the horrors, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Gypsy then shifts gears, talking about forgiveness and regret. She admits she played a role in her mom's death, finally, but the way she phrases it, it's giving "I'm sorry but" vibes. She says she'll carry the regret forever, but then immediately follows up by saying she'll remember her mom as a good person behind the mental disorder. Like what? That feels like a bit of a reach. And here's where it gets even murkier. Gypsy talks about turning her pain into a purpose, advocating for kids who've suffered abuse, spreading awareness about Munchausen by proxy, and sharing her story so no other child ends up in her shoes. Admirable, sure, but does it erase what happened? Absolutely not. She hopes her advocacy can stop another child from thinking murder is the only way out. But again, I can't help but feel like she's sidestepping some accountability here. Now, let me just say this. While the letter is heartfelt, it's also raising some serious red flags. Gypsy claims she only played a part in her mom's murder, but let's not forget, she was the one who orchestrated the whole thing. Nick might have been the one who physically committed the act, but Gypsy was the mastermind. Without her planning and direction, would any of this have even happened? I'm not so sure. Want to talk about the whole "I'll remember you as the good person behind the mental disorder" line? Excuse me? Oh, that's a lot to unpack. On one hand, Gypsy seems to be extending an olive branch, saying she forgives her mom and recognizes that mental illness played a role in her actions. But on the other hand, it feels like she's almost trying to paint her mom as this tragic figure to make herself look better. It's not like, hey, my mom was abusive, but she couldn't help it, so I'm the bigger person for forgiving her. It's giving PR damage control, and I'm not sure I'm buying it. Now, let's get into this whole Munchausen by proxy diagnosis, or lack thereof. Yes, it's a real disorder, and yes, it's horrifying to think about a parent putting their child to unnecessary medical treatments for attention. But here's the thing, Didi was never officially diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy. This label only started circulating after her death, and it's based on anecdotal evidence from Gypsy and those around her. Don't get me wrong, Didi's actions were undeniably abusive, but slapping this diagnosis on her posthumously feels like a convenient way to absolve Gypsy of full accountability. It's almost like saying, well, my mom was sick, so this isn't entirely my fault. Sorry, but that's not how accountability works. Gypsy also mentions how her mom's actions shaped the circumstances of her crime, and okay, sure, her upbringing was beyond traumatic, no one's denying that, but let's not pretend she didn't have other options. There were so many ways Gypsy could have sought help, trusted adults, law enforcement, even just running away again. Instead, she chose the most extreme and irreversible solution, murder. Blaming her mom's behavior for her choices feels like a cop-out. And it's honestly frustrating to see her trying to rewrite the narrative this way. And let's address the part where Gypsy talks about turning her pain into a purpose. On the surface, it sounds noble, advocating for abused kids, raising awareness about Munchausen by proxy, and helping others recognize the warning signs. But let's be real, this is also a way for her to control the story. By positioning herself as an advocate and survivor, she's shifting the focus away from her role in the crime and onto her redemption arc. It's smart, but it's also a little manipulative if you ask me. Here's another thing that doesn't sit right with me. Gypsy's focus on her mom's mental instability almost completely overshadows the other victims in this story. She mentions Nick in passing, but let's not forget that he's spending the rest of his life behind bars because of her manipulation. Gypsy may have felt like she had no way out, but Nick, he's the one who paid the ultimate price for her plan, and that's something she doesn't fully address. Where is the accountability for that? And lastly, the way Gypsy talks about regret feels performative. She says all the right things, she's sorry, she'll carry the remorse forever, she'll honor her mom's memory by doing good, but it all feels carefully crafted to make us sympathize with her. It's like she's trying to win public approval without fully reckoning with the gravity of what she did. And don't get me started on the whole Munchausen by proxy thing. Yes, it's a real disorder, and yes, it's horrible for anyone to suffer from it, but Didi, Gypsy's mom, was never officially diagnosed with it. It's starting to feel like people are just throwing that term around to justify Gypsy's actions, and I'm not buying it. It's almost like she straight up says her mom's behavior created the circumstances that led to the crime. But come on, plenty of people grow up in messed up situations without resorting to murder. And at the end of the day, Gypsy's letter is an emotional roller coaster. It's part apology, part justification, and part victim narrative. It's definitely got everyone talking, but I'm still side-eyeing some of her claims. What do you think? Does Gypsy's letter change how you see her, or do you think she's just trying to rewrite the narrative? Spill your thoughts in the comments, because I need to know if I'm the only one feeling this way. And as always, thanks for watching, and let's keep the conversation going.